Yeah. People saying shout out to the 607, a man who used to toil here in the great state of Pennsylvania up in Harrisburg back in the day, and now, of course, is a icon at ESPN on Baseball Tonight and all the other great programming, the great Karl Ravech. Ravi, how are you, man?
Well, I'm doing a lot better than that intro. I mean, there's nothing great about Karl Ravech. He did once work in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, though, Tony. I know that. Harry, how are you guys doing? I'm doing okay.
Doing great.
Now, who was the governor when you were working there? Was it Tom Ridge?
No, I think it preceded Tom Ridge. I was there in 90 to 93.
And did you talk Senators? What did you talk up there, basically? Harrisburg
Senators, Hershey Bears. Remember John Ritchie, who became a great running back for the Oakland Raiders?
Yes. He's a radio guy here in Philly for years now.
Yeah. Good, exactly. He won a state high school football title there.
Cumberland Valley, I believe.
Was that Cumberland Valley?
I think it was
Cumberland Valley, yeah. We had Dan Bowie playing basketball there. Donyell Marshall was in Reading at the time. So there was enough stuff going on.
Beautiful. Not as much as right now. Actually, there's more stuff going on there than there is here. We're in the epicenter now, Karl. And obviously, I saw you talking about earlier on ESPN and on the feed on the net. And here in Philly, the Marlins decided yesterday, apparently, from what I've read, before the game, that even though they were suspecting a couple guys had the coronavirus, that, hey, let's go out and play. And they went out and play, and they still beat the Phillies and scored 11 runs on them.
Yeah, I think, Tony, that most of these, and I think baseball, Major League Baseball will probably issue some statement within the next hour, hour and a half. You know, they're going to say, look, we knew going into this that there were going to be possibilities of individual cases and perhaps outbreaks like this. That's why they have 60-man taxi squads and 30-man rosters, et cetera, et cetera. Knowing that your team has got 4 players that are sick with COVID on it, and perhaps there's going to be more, you certainly then can get into a place where it may be wise to not play the game that night, and let's get some test results back, because if 4 goes to 10 or 9 or 15, we wouldn't play. So I think you do get to a place where you're aware that we have X number of players that have tested positive, and there's a chance there's more. You probably could have pumped the brakes on the game a little bit. But I think they're going to say, we have significant protocols. We will continue to do the testing. We will continue the social distancing. And they probably won't say this, but part of this is on the players here, too. They are the guys who have to behave in a particular way. And if you watch the Rays post-game celebration on a walk-off yesterday, I mean, we had everything short of kissing each other. There were high fives, there were hugs, there was all sorts of stuff going on there, and that's not proper. That's not the way you need to behave. And I hate to sound like a principal at a school, but guys, you got to act accordingly. You're going to sit in the office.
No, I hear you, Karl. And you're right. We went from don't even shake hands anymore. Let's do the elbow to elbow. And now, guys, and I was watching in the bullpens yesterday. The pitchers are all sitting next to each other with no masks on, and they're like a seat apart, not 6 feet apart.
There were guys in dugouts without masks on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how baseball has all these things in place, and then the management and the managers and the coaches and the people around are not enforcing these so-called rules that they have to steadfastly adhere to, just like the regular population does.
Yeah, and I don't know what the ability of a team or the commissioner's office to fine players who don't follow guidelines, because I'm not certain that these are laws or rules, whatever term they use. But I'm certain that this afternoon, after an owner's call with the commissioner, the teams were then told by their owners, you need to remind everybody in the organization how to behave. The first 3 days have not been a great example of following guidelines and following rules. They haven't. And we've done 3 months of the Korean baseball games early in the morning. And if you happen to see it, you've seen empty stands, but you've also seen, for the most part, and I'll say there have been some examples where they didn't follow guidelines. You'd get a fist bump or a high five. But for the most part, it is a different world, the way that the players over there have interacted with each other than what we've seen in 3 days in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, Carl, the thing that really didn't make sense to me was the fact that, the Marlins get multiple players. They get results back that multiple players have contracted the virus, yet they let it up to the team to decide whether they wanted to play. You would think that there would be a protocol in there that says if you've got X amount of players or more that test positive on a certain day, that day's game is postponed.
I wouldn't argue with it, Harry. I think that makes sense, and maybe that's something that Major League Baseball comes out with, in the next couple of hours, that we're going to tighten up, and that would largely come as a result of a conversation and collaboration with the association. I know that the commissioner, under the agreement, has some pretty wide sweeping authority to say, look, we are suspending, if not canceling or postponing games for teams. And we'll figure it out as it goes along. I mean, back in '81, if I'm not mistaken, they ultimately used win percentage. Not everybody played the same number of games, and maybe you have to skip a series or two series for a team, and you subsequently fall back on winning percentage to determine the 16 teams that make the playoffs. But, yeah, I mean, the two things that come out of it are, A, you had a team that had 4 players apparently testing positive, being handed the reins to say we're going to pull back or we're going to allow our team to go. And then you have players who are not doing things to help prevent the spread of any virus should there be a virus.
And then a question, of course, Karl Ravech of ESPN joining us. By the way, say hi to my buddy Boog Shambi. We had him on right before he got to get up starting at 4:30 in the morning to do those games. Yeah, you guys have been doing the overnight shift for a while, huh?
We went from overnight, Tony, to overnight. So we started at 3:30, 4:30 in the mornings, and then on Friday night for the opener, I was up till 2 a.m. when Matt Olson walked it off in a grand slam. So I don't know what day it is. I don't know who I am. I don't know who you are, and I'm starting to get to know Harry. So this is good.
Karl Ravech. Now, the other question, of course, is, the stuff that we saw this weekend, there was some good baseball. We saw firsts. We saw the first guy on second base in a tie game. We saw the Cleveland Indians upset because the Kansas City Royals found a way to score without actually having an at-bat.
An official
at-bat in that inning, and then the pitcher's upset about that. It's just been a crazy. But we had Jason Stark, our old buddy, on last week, and he said he liked the idea of the guy on second base in an extra inning game. And we saw 2 examples of it, which showed you just how wild it can be.
And for the most part, with the exception of the Royals, there's not a lot of bunting going on, at least in the games that I've seen. In our game, the A's and Angels, they swung and tried to move. In the Rays game, there wasn't bunting going on. They did attempt to steal third, and that worked out pretty well until a base runner slid past third base. Look, with all due respect to the purists out there, and I love many of them, I'm in favor of something like this. I'm all good with games ending, and one thing that has been accomplished, they've all ended in the 10th inning. Mm-hmm. So the idea that you're going to have 15-inning games, and my best friend is Tim Kirkshin, and yesterday, even on our Baseball Tonight show, he said, here, Ravi, here's what I miss, okay? Some of the greatest games ever have been 17 or 18-inning games, to which Wise Guy said, I also know this, some of the worst games ever have been 17 and 18-inning games. And I think more of those occur than the ones that you actually remember, because I've seen 17, 18, 21-inning games. There's nobody there seeing them but me who's watching the game and the people that are playing in it. Nobody stays. There's a reason nobody stays, because there's tomorrow's radio, there's tomorrow's internet, there's tomorrow's sports highlight show. We don't need 17, 18-inning games, let alone with staffs that are taxed now and 60-game season. So, yeah, I like that. I'm much more of an experimentalist than I am a purist.
Have you gotten used to watching and or calling games with no fans in the stands yet?
I have. I thought that would be the most sort of jarring thing for fans who watch Major League Baseball. It is very different. And look, to their credit, it's taken 3 months, but in Korea, 10% of the fans are now going back into their stands. So if you're looking for a blueprint, and I'm not certain that Korea and the United States should ever be compared, just given the size disparity. But it took them 3 months in a country much smaller than the United States to get fans back. So this notion that perhaps fans at some point are going to go back, we have, 57 games left. I don't see how that's even remotely possible.
Couple of interesting things. Mike Trout, for the first time in his career, hits a 3-0 green light home run. I mean, who would have thought that, huh?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. The other part about Trout, which I think, based on what we're hearing with the Marlins here, and we've seen some Cincinnati Reds players, you do wonder, those that were a little skeptical about coming back or on the fence, if you see something like this, I wonder if it further exacerbates their anxiety, and they say, you know what, we're 0-6, we're 1-5. I'm not going to risk this. I mean, David Price came out, I'm sure you've seen it, with a tweet today saying, we're now going to see how serious Major League Baseball is with regards to players' health and safety. I don't believe they were serious in the beginning, and that's why I opted out. That might be one of these trickle effects from what we're seeing with Miami today, is you're going to get some players who said, yeah, no more. We'll see you next spring. And
Verlander, that started out yesterday as oh, wow, he's out for the season. And then later on it cleared up, and they said, no, Dusty Baker said it's a strained forearm, just a couple of weeks. I mean, if he's out even a couple of weeks in this shortened season, that can't help the ball club.
No, I would lean more towards him not coming back. I do think that you can be optimistic about a strain, but there is empirical evidence, and a lot of it, that when you have a forearm strain, it actually is connected to the elbow. I hope that's not the case, but I think the initial feeling of he's done for the season because of that connection between forearm strain and elbow is so significant and so real. But I certainly understand trying to be optimistic about it, and we'll revisit in 2 weeks. If they don't have Verlander, they don't really have a chance. I mean, you can beat teams up, but it's clear to me there are two teams that stand out from everybody else, and that's the Yankees and the Dodgers. And then you can start to get into those next levels of teams that have a chance to win it all. But those two teams they're on a different planet, providing they stay healthy. They really are.
My favorite video of the weekend, though, is the Will Smith home run into right field, and it hit the Dodger fan's head and knocked it off.
Yeah.
And then the Dodger fan, whose picture it was, asked Will Smith if he can at least have the ball, and Will Smith responded to him and says, yeah, I'll see what I can do, DM me. So, I mean, that was incredible. Did you see that shot?
I saw the shot. I also saw Jeff McNeil, who decided to move his dog from one section, his cardboard cutout dog, from one section of Citi Field where he couldn't really see it to right behind him in right field, only to have a baseball go right off of his head, the result of a home run. So, yeah, there have been some pretty interesting and unique circumstances, and getting your dog cardboard cutout doinked off the head by a home run from the other team is another one of those that only happens in 2020.
But nothing tops the Philly fanatic in the stands during the Phillies-Marlins game, behind the seats, goofing off with cardboard fans, but especially the Marlins man poster there. He sat behind. First of all, he flipped him off, and then he blew his tongue out. He can't flip off. He doesn't have fingers. And then he went behind him and put his entire shirt over his head, and then pulls out a silly string thing and then covers his entire face. I mean, that could be a lawsuit. Marlins man, he must have paid to have that put there, right? Could there be litigation forthcoming?
The fanatics got
COVID. In this society, absolutely. And by the way, how's my boy Kruk sounding? Look, how's he doing?
He's so far in 3 games. He seems like he's got a lot left in the tank, so to speak.
He's in mid-season form.
so he's already passed miserable onto the other side of that.
Exactly.
He is the best. I love the Krucker.
We love the Krucker here too. We just had Joe Carter on last hour talking about that 93 home run for the Blue Jays, obviously, and the Blue Jays not having a home. And so, you look at that 93 team, and even though there were a bunch of ragamuffin guys with the late, great Dutch Dalton and Mitch Williams reliving those days, and of course, Joe Carter, back-to-back World Series with the Blue Jays. Just great stuff, reliving those days, Carl.
And don't forget, I mean, this idea, I don't mean to jump off of the great Blue Jays and Joe Carter, but the idea of the Toronto folks and the folks in Canada saying it's not really about us. It's about we don't want teams to come in from the United States that may have outbreaks. Well, here's a perfect example of why the government up there may have said, not such a good idea. We're not going to invite that into our country.
Yeah, but the hockey teams are all up there. They'll be dropping the puck, Gravy. They'll be dropping the puck later on this week in Toronto. I know, because they're in a bubble. So
that's
stay
smart.
And they'll stay up there in Toronto, eh?
Yeah.
Now, what are the best strip clubs? Because I know Lou Williams knows about Magic City and Atlanta in the NBA.
He only goes there for the wings, Tony.
Yeah, I know.
Toronto was known for its restaurants. That's what every time I heard from players, it was always the best food on their road trips was Toronto.
It is great. And, Buffalo, because they can't go into bar, the Anchor Bar, because of the
Yes.
restrictions. They can't even go into the Anchor Bar and get wings when they're up there in Buffalo for the next couple of months. Once they start playing, August 11th is when the Blue Jays will start playing up in the Buffalo
I think
stadium.
if I'm not mistaken, the Anchor Bar, it's wings, and way the hell back when it was OV splits. Do you remember that in the bucket?
Absolutely. That's great Buffalo
Yeah.
knowledge right there, Ravi. You're
Yeah,
younger
that I
than
remember.
you know. For a guy who worked in Harrisburg, man, your knowledge is phenomenal, man.
I
Phenomenal.
think I also worked in Binghamton, New York, and Harris and Ithaca. And the reason that we knew about Buffalo is because Ithaca College football program used to play the University of Buffalo, and when it did, we went to the Anchor Bar, and that's where the OV splits and the wings came in.
Beautiful. And of course, of course, Ithaca, the alma mater of the great Chuck Wilson from ESPN
Yes.
Radio beginning days, as you well
Yes.
remember.
Yes.
Beautiful. Hey, Carl, we really appreciate the time, man. So what's next? You going to do baseball tonight? What's your schedule so people can follow you? At Karl Ravech, ESPN, by the way. By the way, you following me on Twitter now? You weren't following me before.
I am now. When I get hey, Carl, look, it's Tony. Get the hell on Twitter. Follow me. DM me. I'm trying to find your butt. So right away, I can follow you.
Thank you, sir.
And by the way, I would not suggest trying that at home because it's reserved for people like Tony. Don't ask me to follow you just because you say follow me, and I will. I knew Bruno had an ulterior motive. Schedule is important. Tonight, with Kirkchin and Eduardo Perez, we have Red Sox Mets. Somebody named Osich is pitching for the Red Sox, not Chris Sale, so that should go well. We got a game Wednesday. We got a game Friday. We got baseball tonight, Sunday, providing we have baseball. Let's hope we have baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, the Mets, you talk about a team that got lathered this past weekend. A couple of teams really gave up a lot of runs, and Atlanta really laid the lumber on those Mets.
Things are going to change. Once we get the DeGroms of the world out of the way,